right, the Dolphins 2024 draft is in the books. Done. And as the Dolphins do, there is polarity on what has gone down. One side, brilliant, unbelievable draft. The other side, disaster. You know, no one knows anything, really. You got to let this whole thing play out for a while. I think there's legitimate points on both sides. I think it's going to end up in the middle. I love to write. I always wanted to be a writer. I love creating stories. Never did it because I wasn't good enough. But in all my studies, all my writing, the characters that people love the most are not the, perfectly Teflon good guys or the evil guys that have no redeeming qualities. It's the people that are in the middle. Like they have a little good, a little bad. It's like, oh, well, I didn't expect that. It keeps you on your toes. And the Dolphins, they haven't delivered the big wins for us in a long time. But man, aren't they interesting? It is so interesting to be a Dolphins fan. And if you look at it from a football lover's point of view, it's just interesting. And just the drama and stuff on the outside. So I'm going to go through this draft, and there is a lot of good. And then there's some things that you should be concerned about. And then there's like mysteries inside this. And I'm not just trying to be hyperbolic in any way, shape, or form. This was very intriguing for many, many, many reasons. I'm going to try not to get too deep into all this stuff, but I'm going to get back to my live next Friday or this Friday coming up. And I'll start digging into it. But there is so much interest here. And this draft is going to be one of those where it's going to be like, whoa, that was brilliant. Oh, man, that was screwed up. But then even on top of that, you don't really know. If you look at it from a 1-year window, it could be one thing. And if you look at it from a 3 or 4 year window, it could be something else. But then that says something on top of it, too. I'm really excited. I really am excited about this draft. Potential, talent, that's definitely there. But then the decisions that are like, hey, this is where we're supposed to go, and then it goes this way. So anyway, guys, all right, so Dolphins, they ended up with Chop Robinson, first round, edge player. Patrick Paul, tackle, second round. Jalen Wright, running back, fourth round that they used a pick from next year to get into this one, a compensatory pick. Muhammad Kamara, fifth round, edge player. Malik Washington, receiver, sixth round. Patrick Morris, safety, sixth round. And receiver, seventh round, Taj Washington. Now, this, if you listen to me, it's like, whoa, the tackle thing, yeah. I wanted interior defensive line players. I could understand the receiver spot. I definitely wanted offensive line, and we kind of eschewed that. But I don't think it was all Greer just not wanting it, because he did try, from many reports, to kind of poke around in that teens to get one of the F brothers. He did try to get back into the second round to get Guyton. He ended up drafting Paul. But then the Steelers, they didn't like us. They kept taking guys that I was like, oh man, I thought we would get. And so Greer found himself in a situation to pick players, and he's got to pick them. And I still think he could have gone other directions, but you can't fault some of this talent. I mean, potential and just athletic talent is on display on nearly all of these picks. And so that is definitely something you could say, hey, this is a win, depending on how it plays out. But what I was trying to say is that when you're looking at a guy building a team, you've got to look at the execution, the individual picks, but then the philosophy of taking these individual picks and then putting them on a roster. And then how that roster fleshes itself out and how that roster then drives to victories. Now, clearly, you cannot. I saw people that really don't like Chris Green. Like, well, all right, that guy's talented. All right, that guy's pretty talented. I don't get it, the pick, but that guy's talented. But then when you ask yourself, is this a draft of a GM that's worried about his security? And is he looking to win now? This is a draft that clearly points to the future. And some of the things that's pointing to is very interesting. Because, I mean, you get two edge players. Okay, look, we understand Chubb and Phillips are going to be dinged. They're going to be, slow to roll in here and probably not going to be 100% till next year, whatever. But you're basically then saying you spent that ammo for a half the season or 3/4 of the season. It's a short window move. Unless Greer has visions for something else. Phillips got the 5th-year option. He's going to be here. But does Chop Robinson and Malik Kamara say that maybe Chubb has got a 1-year window? Or maybe it's not that. Maybe that knee of one of these guys is not as good as many might think. And the decision here was to try to salvage this season because some of these guys might not be 100% or not even show up till late in the season. So if you're just saying, hey, look, this is a short-term thing, I mean, Kamara ran a 4.57, very physical, which I like. You got him in the 5th round. A lot of people thought he was a 3rd-round prospect that fell. And he's not perfect. He's got to work on his technique. But you run a 4.57 at that size. You're that physical. I mean, look, Van Ginkel was taken in that round. This could be a Van Ginkel, and that would be amazing for us. Okay? And, look, you got Shaq Barrett there too. So, if all these guys are coming back, Chubb, Phillips, and you got Shaq Barrett, and then you got Chop and Kamara, there's only so much you can do. Some of these guys are not going to end up being major usages unless, of course, there's something going on, both short and long term. I thought that was really, it's very interesting because, we are, if we're keeping all these guys, next year, it's going to be loaded. How are you going to, I mean, obviously Barrett's going to move on, but Chop Robinson is a talented, I don't understand how people are looking at this guy with his attitude, good attitude, with his ferocity, his attack, his speed, his pop, 40.5 vertical. Now, he might be a 1D guy, but, you've got Rodgers, you've got Mahomes, you've got to contend with Allen. I mean, two of those guys in your division. So you want to get after quarterbacks, and you understand it. You look at what Weaver likes to do on defense. You can see this guy in the A-gap shooting, sort of like what Flores did. So you could see all these guys being used, and you can kind of understand it. Although it does feel like there were other areas left barren. The line position. But again, did Greer have plans to get some more of those guys? And then it just didn't fall his way. And then the Steelers, I don't know. I think there is some of that. I am not the biggest Greer fan. I definitely think he should have done something else. There was guys I thought he could have got, but we didn't go for them. But still, I mean, Jalen Wright in the 4th round. Yeah, you spent a lot on HN and you drafted from last year to this year. But this guy is a real talent, dude. 5'10", 210 pounds, 4.38, and 11.2 vert. Broad jump. That's crazy. This guy's a physical player. He's got some little things he's got to work on. But, you could have HN hitting that edge now. He doesn't have to really be the physical guy. And you got Mostert who could bang in there a little bit, and you could pull some of that off the table and let him do it. And I understand that. It makes sense. Mostert, he's kind of like a Mostert. With the size and the speed. And Mostert's probably going to be gone next year. So you got your two backs. I got it. Now, to the other side, the offensive line creates the majority of success for a running back. And the consistency of success, most of the time, it's the offensive line. And so while I like these guys, if this offensive line does not step up, you could see not what they're truly capable. Because last year, people were saying, we had injuries, and Connor was down, and Hunt was down. Well, they're not going to be here this year. So it will be interesting to see how much this offensive line grows, what kind of space they give these guys. They're both going to do really well, and it's a great pick as far as the talent. Could he have gone someplace else to get this offensive line? I don't know. Maybe the concept, again, is, hey, look, I'm getting the best players now. I'm here for the next couple of years. I ain't going nowhere. Next year, I got a bunch of draft picks. And then I'll fill in it when the best player is a guard or the best player is a tackle. And hey, I did get a tackle here, Patrick Paul. Now, Patrick Paul, there's 4 guys taken in the 2nd round. And I see, getting on a kid. The kid's a great kid. He's very smart. You could tell that. And there's a talk about his technique. He's got to rebuild his technique. Sort of. I'm going to go break down his Senior Bowl film to show you all the stuff that I saw. And most of it centers around his ability to, instead of bend with his body and his waist, to bend with his knees and to drop his center of gravity. And it really is mostly about that. The technique kind of gets compromised because this inability to drop his hips. And it's something he can work on. And even small increments of growth will help it out. The feet get angled. Every time you see him, he drops back and a guy makes an inside move. His left foot turns this way. And it happened like 3 or 4 times. It's a pattern because he does not feel. I'm going to take tape or film, whatever you want to call it, of Tehran and show you how he drops. Now, Tehran's a much smaller guy, but if this guy, Patrick Paul, with those 36-inch arms, the 30 bench, and the 330 at 6'8" just about, can settle down his hips, get his hips to drop, and you can kind of build it. I'm actually doing it now because when I was a kid, I was really strong. I could bench like squat like 450, 4 or 5 times in college. I took martial arts and did the high horse and the low horse stance, and I had the ability to drop my hips really well. Now I'm old, I got blood clots in my leg, and I'm seeing that I don't trust my legs, and I keep bending more. And it really struck me that this kid doesn't really trust his core to drop him. And so what you see is a lot of times he drops and when he goes to block, he bends with his waist and he bangs with his head instead of dropping his hips and using his hands to pop, because you can't pop right when you're 6'8" and you're going like this, leaning forward. But once he drops his hips, once he feels comfortable, and there's a lot that goes into it, and the kid can do it. The kid can grow. He doesn't have to go from here to there. It's just each little blip of control and flexibility and being just calm in the moment and holding to the right technique is going to go a long way. This kid could do well, and you've got to understand that. But if he doesn't, it's going to be a problem. He cannot play lurch and lean over guys. He could do it. You'll see a Senior Bowl play where he just drives the guy to the ground, but there were so many things along there that were not good. That was a good one there because he was way stronger. But in the NFL, you're not going to be able to do that. But this kid could clearly make it. We've got to see. But it's potential. It's not for this year. And it might not even be so much next year. But I think we have to understand Greer is taking a long-term view. Now, as a Dolphins fan, are you excited about that? I mean, some people say, well, we had 4 winning seasons and we went to the playoffs twice. Is that the bar? If we had won a second round or something, we pulled something big out of it, then I can say, hey, but right now, to me, this looks like it's going to be a little bit of a tough season, and you could see a little step back, but that might be the plan, guys. And the plan might be, hey, you know what? I'm going to do what I got to do to fill this team out right. Reshooting for 25 and 26. I got loads of picks, but we're wanting to win now. But it doesn't matter what we want. It's what he's thinking. I think we should be winning with all the ammo that we had, all the stuff we had, but it doesn't matter what I think. But then you add in Malik Washington. We needed extra receivers. We need a guy that maybe is going to be able to carry some weight if Hill or Waddle goes down. And this guy, Malik Washington, a lot of people thought he was going to go in the 3rd round. And he had a 42.5 vertical, 10.6 broad, 19 bench, and a 4.47 40. And I think he's like 180 pounds. This guy's a freak. And he's going to add in that nickel, scat kind of guy who's going to come and break a guy down and pop out and maybe get some nice timing routes. You get some ability to, in small space, to break people down and get open. And Tua can deal with that. And he can get open quick. And it's going to put pressure. If you put a guy that fast with that kind of explosion, you'll say 4.47. It doesn't matter what your 40 is. It matters what your explosion is. You want to have a nice 40. But when you're coming out of your break, that explosion creates separation, and that's all you need. And this kid at a 42.5, along with the 10.6 broad, at that size, he's going to have pop out of his route. And when you add in Waddle, you add in Jonnu, and you add in Hill, it can create that. Now, again, it's going to come down to the offensive line and the blocking. We got to get, but you can't fault that pick. Now, Patrick Morris, a safety. I don't know. Ty Washington, 174. He didn't run his 40, so he was trying to hide it. But he had 35 vertical, 10 broad jump. And the broad jump and the vertical test your explosion. You pop out of a standing motion. And that talks about your explosion out of your brakes, out of you coming out of, the pop, the burst. And so this kid's a nice little kid to have. To put it back on. But then you ask yourself, okay, you got Malik Washington, you got Ty Washington. What about EZ? All right, you can add these guys to that, but isn't EZ supposed to be a guy we're banking on? I don't know. Maybe Greer says, hey, I want to overload this receiving group. Or maybe he says, I really don't trust EZ. Maybe, hey, I picked the wrong guy there. Now I'm trying to make it up. This guy, Malik Washington, really should have some real, even for people who don't like Greer or what the direction the Dolphins are doing. This is an interesting guy, guys. Kamara, Washington, Wright, Robinson. You can add Paul in there too because he's the biggest project of the bunch. Those are exciting guys. And heck, Ty Washington is a flyer. This was a very, very interesting draft. But your offensive line, your D tackle spot was not addressed. And so it is a very talent-driven, athletic-driven draft. And it's very McDaniel and Greer-esque. And I said for the last couple of years, the way they built, it's either going to be brilliant or foolish. And I don't think Greer purposely went this route. I think it was helped. I think his nature is this and McDaniel's this, but it was helped by the situation. But we're going to see clearly this Paul is not playing guard. People tell me he's playing guard. The guy can't bend at the waist. He's a tackle. He's almost 6'8". He's not getting down in his stance and coming out and doing. He can't run block. There's a reason for that because he can't gain leverage. What is leverage? Leverage is a force multiplier. And so when even a smaller guy or a lesser guy has leverage over a bigger guy and a stronger guy, it's a force multiplier and it negates the difference. And at this level, you've got to get all the advantage, even if you're just about 6'8" and 330. He's not playing guard. And if he does, then he must have fixed everything that was his problem for the last couple of years in a short period of time. And that would be, holy cow. If he's playing guard and he's playing it well, dude, this guy is like going to, this is, what's his name? Jonathan Ogden played guard in his first year at 6'9", taller than him. You know what kind of athleticism it takes for a guy that big to get in the stance? And, if you saw it previously, okay, but no. But if he does... But this guy can be a guy. If he comes out and he's like an average tackle or above average tackle, that's a win for us. But we got to see, guys. But this offensive line, this interior D line, people talk about bodies. Well, we got lots of bodies. Well, what if you just said the same thing about receiving group? Well, you just got lots of bodies. You're like, oh, they suck. They're not fast. They're not tall. We got a lot of bodies that haven't proven anything. You can't, in some ways, it's different because on the D-line, you could throw bodies at the offensive line and to try to wear them out and you rotate them in and you keep the guys fresh. But there's only like a small amount of gain on that unless, it's over the course of one game and you're really having a huge advantage and you keep, but it's a small advantage. You need talent. You got Sealer. You got some other guys there, but you need a talent. And so we will see. But on the offensive line, it's very hard, I think, for anybody to say, hey, look, this is going to be awesome. Teron, we don't know if he's going to be healthy. Jackson, I keep people saying Jackson was awesome. Guys, just go back and look at his true pass set grade over the last couple of games when he actually played real tough teams. It was no good. Doesn't mean he's terrible. He might get better from last year to this year, but he's about average. He's getting paid above average. He's about average. I understand why they did it. They believe in him. They want to see him grow. But Teron, and then you got Lamb, who I like in pass blocking, and then you got Eichenberg, I like Brewer for some things. I like Wynn for some things, but he gets injured. So this offensive line is going to be very curious. But if it plays out, and the one thing that I do like, because, say I'm a hater, I like the depth way better this year. Driscoll, Wynn, Brewer, who else do we got? Somebody else there. Lamb, you've got more depth now. And last year you would get an injury and it would go like this. And you still got Jones there. But now maybe you get a few injuries or whatever and drop us from here to there. And that's enough to keep Tua throwing the football, running these big, with Jaden Wright and Mostert and Jonnu and because Jonnu's going to get the football and get these crazy. And I think Malik Washington's going to do the same thing too. And then, Achane, maybe that drop, even if you get some injuries, and it's maybe not the best top-end talent, but you got a big, broad a group of depth, maybe that's enough. Now, the last part before I go going on too long, because this is really interesting, this could be a brilliant draft, but it might not play out the way you want, and it might be like, oh, that sucked. Because you've got to take this talent collection, add it to your talent collection, and then take that talent collection and go against other talent collections. And the Jets and the Bills and the Chiefs and Bengals, there's a bunch of teams out there that got better. And so I think that even though I'm not the biggest career guy, I said last year, 24 and 25, that's the final window. If we don't win next year, anything viable, then I think you got to call. All right, no more Greer. I mean, you got to. But this year, I think there's a little bit of a mulligan, and this draft needs a 2-year window to look at. The team needs a 2. It's not what I want. I'm not a big Greer guy, but I'm trying to evaluate fairly. And we got tons of picks next year. There's going to be guys going. You're going to lose Teron. You might lose another guy. But I think that clearly he's going to be here this year and next year. Got to give it a 2-year look. This is not how I built. And if they draft like this next year and don't get any offensive line, then, I'm not going to say the same thing. I shouldn't say it now, but guys, the Steelers ripped us off. It was unbelievable. Like 3 times. Like, yeah, he's on. It's crazy. So I give a little mulligan. I like physical football teams. I think other teams built more conventional, but we're going to see how this philosophy plays out. I think there's a lot to be liked about this draft. I think there's a lot of question marks. Not all these guys. I mean, I see everybody. Every one of them is going to be a star. Morris, he's not the only one, but the rest of them guys, these are geniuses. No, you're probably going to get a couple of good players, some average players, and a few busts. That's the way it is every time. But if you can get enough of these guys, then it's a win. And I think that's a more realistic view. Let's see how it all plays out. Let's see what we do in free agency. Let's see how this collection of players play come the season. But if we're seeing this offensive line get bullied around again, and we can't run against the good teams, and we can't run inside, and we can't run in the red zone, and the offense stalls again, and all of a sudden teams are starting to run us, then, okay, we screwed up. But if not, hey, maybe this is a brilliant draft. Let us see. I think it's interesting. The Malik Washington guy and Jalen Wright are 2 very intriguing picks. I want offensive linemen, but, how can you not? Paul, he's an offensive lineman, dinosaur. So anyway, guys, I think that you're going to get the polarity, but I'd stay away from that because there's going to be some of the positive guys stuff is going to be right, and some of the negative guys stuff will be right, but most of the stuff is going to be like in the middle, and let's just see how it plays out. It's a good time. It's a time for hope. Enjoy. Let's see. This is Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel's vision. Let's see it play out for the next 2 seasons, and then we can have our final exam. I hope you enjoyed the draft. There's a lot to talk about. There's so much to talk about this. But anyway, Curtis saying, catch you next time. Be well. Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.